Hey, what's up, all my little ponies out there? I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I'm coming at you with another My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode review. This time it's season 9, the final seasons, episode 19. Ooh, that final home stretch. It's so bittersweet. But this is episode 19 titled Dragon Dropped. So that already tells you this episode is all about Spike. Or is it? As we open up with Rarity coming to Spike in order to actually kind of, find out exactly if he can come along with her on a diamond hunting excursion, and because Spike's a dragon, he knows good diamonds and all that good stuff, so it's a match made in heaven, you would think. They just seem to have this chemistry, this unspoken chemistry about them, Rarity and Spike. But Spike seems to be more preoccupied with this letter he's writing early in the morning, and then he's really kind of urgent. He feels this urgent need to go to the post office, basically brushing off Rarity, saying that I'll have to do a rain check on our whole diamond hunting excursion, which really takes Rarity off guard because that's very much not like Spike. Usually he's at her beck and call pretty much. So, I'm hesitant to even phrase it like that because you really get an idea of how Spike and Rarity's relationship truly works for the most part. So ultimately Rarity had no choice but to get Applejack to come along with her, but Applejack's not really that great in terms of waiting hand and foot on Rarity. So Applejack, AJ just kind of meanly is just like, well, not so much meanly, because she's getting frustrated with Rarity being so like, oh, you're nothing like Spike. Spike's so much better. Spike's so much more attentive. So you're just like, well, if you want Spike so much, just go get him. Which, triggers the bats within the cave. It alerts them to their presence and they basically chase them out of the cave. So Rarity ends up going to Twilight, having looked for Spike again, but Twilight's just like, well, he's not here, and it's very odd that he wouldn't want to spend time with you. And she even suggests that maybe, it might be that somehow Rarity had inadvertently hurt Spike's feelings in some way, shape, or form. So Rarity takes this massive box of like gemstones and comic books and, various things over to the post office in order to apologize to Spike. And there she runs into, of all people, Gabby the Griffon, from that episode with the Cutie Mark Crusaders where Gabby wanted to find her own Cutie Mark. So, Gabby and Rarity get acquainted for the most part. And Gabby, and, we even come to find out that Rarity prepared this whole apologizing speech with songs and all this good stuff. And when Spike actually does show up, with 2 ice cream cones nonetheless, Rarity, actually tries to apologize proper, but Spike lets her know, it's just like, yeah, I'm not really mad about anything, I just had something to do, and that specifically was to hang out with his new friend Gabby. Gabby is the current mail carrier from Griffinstone to Ponyville. And, apparently, she and Spike have become best close friends, which immediately worries Rarity for the most part, as Rarity starts to realize something that she never really considered for the most part. As, since Gabby is now a correspondent between Ponyville and Griffinstone, she had actually been in touch with, Spike in terms of how Gallius is coming along, and then they started getting to talking and they kind of became friends over time. And for the most part, Rarity brushes this off as, okay, so this was a one-time thing, so maybe tomorrow, Spike and her can hang out and do the whole gem hunting thing. But Spike actually lets her know that no, this is now a permanent thing because we have Gallius here in Ponyville going to school, and um, Gabby actually is now constantly sending the mail back and forth between Gallius and Old Man Gruff, Grandpa Gruff, I think it was, and because he's very attentive into how things are going on with Gallius, so now Gabby is almost like a permanent fixture in terms of Ponyville and delivering mail for everything. She seems to run a regular news route as well, so maybe they might be giving her a little bit more of extra duties in terms of this in order for her not to just, go directly home to Griffin Zone and directly to Ponyville. Now there's a few more things she can do along her route and along the way. But, as Spike and Gabby actually go off on to do Gabby's route, Rarity starts to feel a little bit dejected. She starts to kind of realize that, wow, I just kind of miss having Spike around. He was such a permanent fixture that she never really thought about it too much after a certain point. He was always so willing and eager to help, but now that he's not here, she desperately notices it more than she ever did before. And that becomes very apparent because certain things Spike had a deeper knowledge about things she had. He made a great assistant. That's the thing about Spike. He makes a great assistant, and he likes being an assistant to certain people. He likes helping out and doing that kind of stuff. That's just how Spike is, oddly enough. And when Rarity tries to make do with, having Rainbow Dash come along, Rainbow Dash is just not really the kind of help that Spike was. And Rarity really starts to long for having Spike around. She starts to think about all the minute things that Spike would do that really helped her out in terms of her daily life, the various things that she never really considered him doing that really impacted things. And now that she's seeing him associate with someone else so much so often, it's kind of really dawning on her of how much of a help he was. How much of a big asset he always seemed to come in clutch in terms of everything that she needed. And it's not like they never had fun. It's not like she completely took advantage of him at every turn. There were times when they did, enjoy themselves, and he never seemed to hate being around her or hate the various things that she had him do. He always seemed to be pleased. He always seemed to be happy. So she never really considered certain things. Maybe he'd be happier doing other things. And now that she's seeing that, she's starting to wonder if maybe, she should have done more in order to keep him around. And, when she, talks about this whole situation to Fluttershy, about how she never really considered, how much Spike came in clutch, Fluttershy suggests that maybe you should actually go to Spike and tell him how much he really means to you. Show him how much you really desperately value his help and assistance. So, in a very creepy manner, Rarity wakes Spike up very stupidly early in the morning in order to show him that she's planned a day out to this diamond crevasse that only is accessible once per year. Yeah, and she, wants to, bring him along to show him, and, have this great day out, to show him how much she really appreciates his time and assistance and his friendship. But, Spike had actually already made plans to go out with Gabby, so, Rarity kind of backs down at first, saying, okay, maybe we could do it next year, but Spike says he'll just write Gabby a letter since it's a once a year kind of thing. Don't want to miss out on it. So they get back from their trip, and Spike had a great time. He got a whole bunch of tasty gems to munch on and all that. And no sooner than that, he runs into Gabby, and apparently they had actually been sending letters back and forth during the entire trip. And Gabby's all too ready to hear about Spike's adventure, and it's even at the point where it's just like, well, I was about to start up my route, so you can tell me along the way. And Rarity immediately takes notice of this, and it's just like, oh no, I've lost him again. It's gone from just wanting to spend a little bit of time with Spike here and there, and to now she's full-blown trying to just vie for his attention. She's desperate to get that attention back because she now feels like she doesn't know how to operate without it. She's now deeply desperate to show him how much she appreciates him and keep his attention all to herself. She starts to miss the reasoning behind why Spike might want to just hang out with someone else. She's lost herself in this kind of need to have Spike all to herself again. So as Gabby and Spike are off, talking and flying and having a great time, just talking about his recent adventure, they run into Rarity. And Rarity shows off these, passes to Pony Palooza or something, like this pony superhero comic book expo kind of thing. And that Rarity had gotten for her and Spike. That's a one-day only pass. And at first Spike's not quite certain about it because it's just like, well, I don't want to miss out on hanging out with you 2 days in a row. But Gabby's a very nice person. She's just like, dude, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Go ahead, have some fun. But once they leave, she feels a little dejected. This is her first major friend in Ponyville outside of the Cutie Mark Crusaders. And, this is a friend she made through natural means. She was friends with the Cutie Mark Crusaders out of a kind of necessity. But her and Spike, they're genuine friends. This is a friend that I made through my efforts of my own. And you value friends like that. So, Rarity and Spike actually had a pretty fun time at the convention, and they're absolutely exhausted and just like, well, this might take an entire day to recover from. And the next day, Rarity's just like, yeah, I know we were real tired, so I brought over ogres and obliates, I think it was called, and in order to kind of have their own downtime, with Rarity, again, still trying to push, her, how much Spike should be spending more time with her rather than Gabby. So when Gabby comes by with this kind of soup in order to, get Spike's energy back up, she ends up finding Spike and Rarity having this raucous time playing their, little D&D thing, ogres and obliates. And Gabby kind of feels a little bit hurt because it's just like, you brushed me off. You just kind of lied to me about being, not able to do anything. She feels betrayed for the most part. And she leaves not wanting to hang out with Spike anymore, which breaks his heart. And Rarity's just, you could tell she's playing off, any guilt, because she's just like, I won, I got Spike's attention back. But Spike is just so devastated by not having Gabby anymore that he's just completely not in it anymore. He's not really enthusiastic about hanging out with Rarity, which was definitely not what she wanted. Because he no longer has this friend who he really connected with, and he really just feels incredibly bad about just breaking Gabby's heart like this. And as he gets home, Twilight immediately notices just how completely down he is, and Rarity tries to play it off by saying, oh, well, I might have simply stolen his attention away from Gabby, and Twilight calls her out on her BS. It's just like, you mean you stole his attention and ended up causing a rift in their friendship? And, Rarity does feel bad about it once she really realizes the ramifications of what she did. She simply just wasn't ready to kind of give up the attention that Spike had constantly given her. She didn't know how to react when she realized that he wouldn't be around as often as before. And it just kind of it hit her all at once, and it was too much to take in, and she acted irrationally because of it. And Twilight told her, it's just like, hey, friendships change over time, and sometimes you don't realize how much you really depend on certain people's attentiveness. So, she tells Rarity to make it right, to show that you are true friends and you're willing to let Spike branch out and find other forms of friendship. So Rarity goes and goes to apologize to Gabby about the whole situation, and she feels really bad about it, and she comes with all the evidence of her misconduct and misdeeds, and Spike even shows up, and she lays it all out, tells them what they did, how badly she feels about everything, and just how irrational she was because she just wasn't ready to give up being Spike's, number one. Well, outside of Twilight, anyway. But, honestly, while it wasn't a great thing that Rarity did, Spike actually kind of feels good about this. Like, oh, you really cared so much to go this far? Like, honestly, the gesture alone was kind of like, that's actually really sweet of you. Messed up, but very sweet. So, Spike forgives her for the most part. And even Gabby kind of chimes in saying that she understands why Rarity would go to such lengths. Because she finds Spike very awesome and cool. And she loves hanging out with him. And she missed hanging out with him. So they end up, going about Gabby's routes this time around with their friendship freshly mended. Ooh, I'm trying not to die from a coughing fit, thank you. So Rarity is pleased with being able to get these two friends back on track, and she realizes that she just has to accept that, she can't monopolize all of Spike's time all the time. That there's, just there's gonna have to be a compromise because Spike is his own person and she can't have him constantly waiting hand and foot on him. So she just decided to make do with Pinkie Pie and her other friends for the most part. But, Spike, fresh off of hanging out with Gabby, decided to make some time for Rarity as well, because he does also value the time he spends with her. Which is something that, Rarity didn't quite think of. It's the fact that, hey, we could both... It's not that I would give up being friends with you. It just means that, well, half of the day is spent with someone else, and there's nothing wrong with that. Although, his sweet moment is interrupted by Pinkie Pie creating a massive storm of bats at the end, but a very sweet episode. I've always felt that the bond between Rarity and Spike was something that didn't quite get explored enough. Rarity really does appreciate deep down the things that Spike does for her. It's not that he's a slave, he does like doing these things for Rarity. He likes spending time with her, and while she might not feel the same way that he does for her, that's okay for him. He appreciates their friendship. He appreciates the time they spend together. And friendships come in various different ways. And, sometimes friendships go and branch off and become different entities and different things. And that's something that Rarity just had to come to terms with. A lot of themes in this season have just been about spreading your time around a little bit more. Certain friendships grow, change, and shift, and sometimes you just have to realize that sometimes people don't have as much time to spend with you, but that doesn't mean they don't want to spend time with you, period. A very good lesson, that is very complex and is more applies to later on in life than earlier on, because good friends, they'll always be there for you. It doesn't mean they'll stop wanting to hang out with you. It's just that sometimes they have to split their time amongst other places. But hey, enough gabbing and coughing from me. Like, Jesus, thought I was going to die for a second. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. How did you feel about this episode? How do you feel about the relationship between Spike and Rarity? They didn't go into full-blown romance, but Spike got to actually feel that Rarity genuinely values having him around, which is more than we've ever truly seen for the most part. So, that's kind of closure on that relationship, that, nothing will really truly change. It's just that Spike has more friends, that's all. But, tell me if you feel that maybe their friendship should have just ended. Maybe they should have not been as... Maybe they should have branched off from that and just kind of ended things from there. Definitely tell me your thoughts on this. And if you liked this video, leave me a like. If you hated it and got really freaked out by all the coughing, feel free to leave me a dislike. That shit got out of control. Definitely subscribe, because I'll definitely continue to bring more My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode reviews up until the oh-so-bitter end. I'm not ready for it to be away. It's become such an intrinsic part of my life. But, it's coming to an end, so definitely subscribe up until the very last moment. And until the next video, just remember that, hey, spreading your time is just a thing that you have to learn later on in life. Time management, that's the name of the game. But until next time, kids, I think I need to get a drink of water. Bye-bye.